Welcome everyone to this evening's meeting of Council at the Guildhall. I would like to remind members that the guillotine will fall 3 hours after the start of this meeting. We will take one short break at an appropriate point during the course of the meeting. Before we move on to the business of the meeting, can I remind everyone of our agreement at the July 2023 meeting of Full Council, when we passed a motion requiring the Lord Mayor to remind us all about our net zero targets. With this in mind, you will all be aware that York's target for net zero is 2030, with only 1,264 days to the 31st of December 2029. The challenge is immense. We must and shall continue to work together to address the climate emergency. Please behave respectfully and appropriately at this evening's meeting. I would like us to have good, productive debate, giving as many members as possible the opportunity to have their say. To help us get through business effectively tonight, I'd be grateful if we could keep the meeting focused and to the point. I will keep us on track if I feel we are losing focus. I have apologies for absence from Councillors Cuthbertson, Mason, Runciman and Melly. Are there any others? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Chair. Just to note that Councillor Hollier's train's been delayed, but he will be here at some point. He's not here at the moment.
Thank you. Members, please indicate whether you have any personal, prejudicial or disclosable pecuniary interests. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just in the right meeting this time, under item 13, I've been advised by the monitoring officer that I should leave the chamber for the discussion or any discussion around the annual report for the Police, Fire and Crime panel because of my pecuniary interests.
Thank you, Councillor Crawshaw.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've got other registrable interest in relation to item 9, in that I am a trustee of York Museums Trust, and so will therefore just withdraw for that item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Similarly to Councillor Crawshaw, I have another registrable interest in being appointed to the York Museums Trust Board, and so we'll withdraw for item 9.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor, I've registered my interest that I'm the treasurer of Poppleton Youth Club, but because I haven't got any children, I don't receive any benefit whatsoever.
Thank you. Any more? We now come to the public participation session. We have 3 registered speakers this evening. Before we proceed with our speakers, I would like to provide a reminder about the rules relating to public participation, as set out in our Constitution at Council Procedure Rule 10. In exercising public participation rights, a member of the public is entitled to express views, positive or negative, about the performance of the council, but must not say anything which is defamatory or discriminatory, make any personal attack on an officer and or member, disclose confidential or exempt information, including personal information, or comment on any live planning or licensing applications. I now call upon Ruth Pearson, who would like to speak in relation to agenda item 6, petitions. Thank you. Ruth, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Lord Mayor and members.
My name is Ruth Pearson and I'm here to represent the parents of Ralph Butterfield Primary School, Haxby. I am also a councillor for Haxby Town Council who wholeheartedly support this petition for a zebra crossing outside all 3 schools in Haxby and Wigginton. The parents have asked me to say the following, and these are their words, not mine. Good evening. We are a group of parents with considerable concerns regarding safety outside our school, Ralph Butterfield in Haxby. We appreciate the steps the council has taken to improve safety around the school, particularly the introduction of single yellow lines and the recent appointment of a new crossing patrol officer. These are both positive developments and demonstrate a commitment to addressing local concerns. However, we do not feel that these measures go far enough to fully address the risks. While the yellow line should improve visibility by reducing congestion outside the school, there is a fear that the clearer road may encourage higher vehicle speeds. Although the presence of a crossing patrol officer will help manage this to some extent, it is unlikely to fully mitigate the risk and may also place the officer in a vulnerable position. In addition, it has taken 5 years to recruit a new crossing patrol officer, which highlights how challenging it is to fill these roles when vacancies arise. Whilst we welcome that the position is now filled, this reliance on staffing does not provide a robust or sustainable long-term solution. For these reasons, we strongly believe that the installation of a zebra or pelican crossing is necessary to properly safeguard children. A formal crossing would encourage drivers to slow down in advance and provide a clear, permanent safety measure. The crossing patrol officer could then support its use, further enhancing safety. Importantly, should the position become vacant again, the crossing itself would continue to offer protection and reassurance to families and residents. This is particularly significant for older primary school children, years 5 and 6, who are increasingly encouraged to travel independently in preparation for secondary school. Parents need confidence that appropriate safety measures are in place to support this transition. At present, it is concerning that walking routes to other schools appear safer than those to Ralph Butterfield. For example, someone from Haxby would have a much safer route walking 1 mile to Joseph Rowntree School than they would the short walk to Ralph Butterfield. The congestion in the area will only become more prevalent due to your proposed station developments, along with a further 800 houses you have granted permission to be built in the local area. We would therefore ask the council to give serious consideration to installing a zebra or pelican crossing as a long-term solution to improve safety for all children and families accessing the school, as well as barriers outside the school gates preventing the children running out straight into a busy road, whilst also preventing cars, lorries and farm traffic mounting the curb. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account when that item is dealt with. Thank you. I now call upon our second speaker, Denise Craghill, who would like to speak in relation to agenda item 17.1, motion on notice expanding access to on-street electric vehicle charging in York. Denise, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm speaking this evening, excuse me, I'm speaking this evening as Vice Chair of York Green Party. I wanted to speak on this issue because it is a very important issue for residents in the more central wards in York who live in terrace streets and do not currently have a viable option to charge an electric vehicle at home. It is a bit sad that this issue has had to come forward as a council motion in order to prompt any action of any kind, especially when York and North Yorkshire were awarded £250,000 for this purpose in 2025. Both the Lib Dem motion and the Labour amendment make some good points, but what residents really want to see is some actual action. The Labour amendment adds a bit of clarity here and there to the original motion, and it commits grudgingly to some tentative progress, promising to bring an updated strategy back for cross-party scrutiny in 6 months' time, just before the local elections. It suggests that pilot trials of EV charging in terrace streets may possibly take place at some unspecified time in the future. But sadly, much of the amendment is a masterclass in foot dragging and evasion. It lists multiple reasons why safe, accessible pavement charging is nigh on impossible, It promises to explore, review, seek, lobby, investigate, etc., etc. In one place, it talks about the distant possibility of a pilot scheme, one scheme only. Residents are telling us they are getting fed up with the lack of progress on this issue and just want to see some action. For goodness sake, we all know that there are various practical issues about how to implement EV charging in terrace streets, but please can we just get on and get a number of street pilots actually in place? The best way to get some real progress on this is to try it out in a number of different locations, work with residents, assess what works and what doesn't work, include learning from other cities, and then take it from there. That's what pilots are for. The current protracted heatwave surely brings it home that we are now living climate change. It isn't in the future, it's now, and we have to act quickly.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Switching to electric vehicles certainly won't be the only solution, but it is an important one now, and one that many York residents want to be part of. But particularly in view of the huge delays to the installation of planned edge-of-centre charging hubs, they are currently being held back by lack of viable charging options. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account when that item is dealt with. Thank you. I now call upon Flick Williams, who is attending the meeting remotely and would like to speak in relation to agenda item 7, report of the Leader of the Council and Executive, and agenda item 17.1, motion on notice, expanding access to on-street electric vehicle charging. Can you hear me, Flick?
Yes, good evening.
Thank you. You have up to 3 minutes.
Lord Mayor, July, Disability Pride Month. Council 5 years ago held at the racecourse passed a motion to fly the Disability Pride flag. On 1st of July, it flew for the very first time from the Mansion House, sadly for 1 day only, instead of the intended 7, which feels to me like a metaphor. It's so disappointing then that the leader's report fails to mention disability pride at all. Why is that? Pride for the LGBTQ+ community is featured, with concerns voiced that these rights are being eroded. I would remind you all that disabled people are the only group of people who still do not even have full civil rights in this country. I'm pleased to note that 39 elected members have now received disability equity training, and trust those of you who haven't will do so. Evidence of this learning put into practice is yet to be evaluated. As one of your numbers said to me, I think there is a better understanding of the issues now, but I'm not convinced anyone cares enough to do anything about it. I think that answer is perfectly illustrated by last Monday's licensing committee concerning wheelchair accessible hackney carriage taxis. The poorly publicised unmet demand survey and its flawed methodology fell apart at the most gentle scrutiny. Its external author completely unable to answer what disability organisations had been contacted beyond "we rang a few care homes." I suppose I should be grateful that post-training more members are able to recognise disabling language and departure from the social model. Still doesn't result in the action required for remedy, however. The taxi trade have explained repeatedly that the prohibitive cost of EV WAVs makes it impossible to finance the vehicle and still make a living. So climate ideology trumps access. This is eco-ableism. Because at the end of the day, or in my case, after a very long and exhausting day in London, giving evidence to the House of Commons Justice Committee, it isn't any of you waiting for an hour at the station alone after dark, watching 29 saloon taxis fill with ambulant people and be on their way because your WAV booking was cancelled on you whilst you were on the train. Often repeated fine speeches about the importance of access and inclusion don't cut it when the action that makes it a reality is still missing. Lord Mayor, you and I were both at the service to bless the magnificent new ramp to the choir inside the Minster. The theme of the service can be summarised as "everyone is welcome here." The sermon given by the Archbishop of York reminded congregants that we shall be judged not by our words and good intentions, but rather by our actions that expand access and increase inclusion. I wish I were able to cast my vote for Stephen Cottrell in next May's elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account when that item is dealt with. That concludes participation. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Do I have members' approval to sign the minutes of the extraordinary council and ordinary council meetings held on the 26th of March 2026?
Yeah, Councillor Fisher.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just point out two errors? One is on page 27, when the first paragraph lists Lars Crowner speaking. I think it was Lars Cram, former councillor of this authority. The other one is on page 29, when it records that I presented two petitions, and one of them is regarding an increase in the speed limit on Sherry Foot and Strensel. Well, the national speed limit applies there. I was actually asking for a reduction from 60 to 40. So if that could be corrected, please. Thank you.
Right, okay. When those corrections have been done, are we happy for me to sign the minutes? Thank you.
And the annual council minutes.
And the annual council minutes? Thank you. Right, now it's my turn. We attended the 20th anniversary of the formation of the Yorkshire Regiment, and the city was presented with this salver, which marks our historic ties with the armed forces and our commitment on both sides to see this connection continue. York is one of only 6 saluting stations in England and the furthest north. What that means is that we're one of the few cities that have been given the right to fire a 21-gun salute, and this happened last month. Earlier today, we conferred an honour on our own hero, Ken Cook, and I'm sure everyone is as happy as I am with that. But I also want to point out that we have a whole host of other heroes in York, and I've been privileged to meet quite a few of them in the last few weeks. Heroes describe many people in York. We're lucky. We have volunteers that give their time and energy on a regular basis. Sporting heroes, young and old, that have represented not just York, but the UK. Parish councillors who do a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes, sports and community groups, people working in elderly care. I could go on, but you'll be thankful to know that I'm not going to. Sadly today, I said goodbye to one of these heroes, Jeff Turner, who volunteered at many places, including the Mansion House, the Treasurer's House, the King's Trust. He was a member of the York Light Opera. Councillor Rowley led the wonderful service, and it was a huge tribute to a very caring, funny and talented man. He had played Lord Mayor 4 times in Mansion House events, so Councillor Rowley, that beat us put together. But what it made me realise was that it's all right honouring heroes when they're not here, but we should be doing more whilst they're still with us. So if you have any heroes in your ward, please let us know. We've been busy these last few weeks, and we're trying to record as much as we can so people can see what's happening with the Civic Office. We've set up a Facebook page, so if you get a minute, have a look and see what we've been up to. And the very last thing that I want to mention is that we met with 3 different groups from our twin city of Munster. And you may not realise it, but next year marks the 70th anniversary of our twinning. So I'm going to ask you all to brush up on your German. Thank you. We now move on to petitions. Notice has been received of 8 petitions to be presented to this council. The council procedure rules allow 1 minute to present a petition to council. Petitions will be referred to the appropriate decision maker, and the member submitting the petition will be informed of any meeting considering the petition in accordance with council procedure rules. I now invite Councillor Merritt to present a petition which calls upon the York and Scarborough Teaching Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust and the City of York Council to work together to urgently undertake measures to address the serious and regular congestion and queuing back from the hospital car park onto Wigginton Road.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to present our Guildhall Ward councillors' online petition, which you've just very kindly outlined the first half of. The second half states that the congestion is badly affecting both nearby junctions and roads beyond and causes major delays to local bus services 1, 5 and 6 and other traffic journeys, including those to the hospital. So unreliable, time-consuming and stressful. Residents who live near the hospital are badly affected too. The congestion increases local air and noise pollution and access difficulties. 1,987 people have signed the petition as of today, and the comments that people have put online attest to the problems that we've outlined in the petition text. They've also made a wide variety of suggestions as to how to tackle the problems, which we've passed to the hospital board chair, who we've already met, and we now present the petition to the council as well.
Thank you, Councillor Merritt. I now invite Councillor Waller to present a petition on behalf of local businesses expressing concerns at the current situation on Front Street in relation to antisocial behaviour.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to present the following petition signed by 305 residents, which has been led by businesses on Front Street, and I would like to thank Vicky White, manager from Bernardo's, who spoke at the People's Scrutiny meeting, which considered the draft community safety strategy. The petition is entitled Family Friendly Front Street, and goes on to say, we, the undersigned, express our concerns at the current situation in Front Street with regard to antisocial behaviour, which is deterring people from coming to visit our local shops. The consequence of street drinking on the benches from the morning to late in the day has taken its toll on footfall, with some families and older residents thinking twice about coming into Acon's shopping centre. If it is not dealt with, it will undermine the work that has been done over the past decade to make the area more attractive and keep the area vibrant and enable shops to remain open. We request similar protections to those that exist in the city centre to tackle these problems. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Waller. I now invite you again to present a petition on behalf of local residents which calls upon City of York Council to reverse proposals for the loss of parking opposite Radford House, Windsor Garth with double yellow lines, or to provide replacement parking with additional eco-grid parking spaces.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to present the petition, which was organised specifically by local residents in a particular part of Windsor Garth area, and it asks for the City of York Council to reverse the proposals for the loss of parking opposite Radford House, Windsor Garth, or to provide replacement parking with additional eco-grid parking spaces, which would assist with those blocks of flats. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Orrell to present a petition which calls on the City of York Council to carry out a consultation of Huntington residents where there is a match day parking to determine whether local people would like further parking restrictions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We've all enjoyed the recent success of City in the Nights, but brilliant as this is, it's resulted in parking issues across many streets in Huntington. Most supporters park responsibly, and for many Huntington residents, the parking is an inconvenience. But for some, it has brought fear. Fear that emergency vehicles will not get down their streets on match days. It's also frustrating for wheelchair and pushchair users. When the stadium opened, there were parking problems, and our Lib Dem administration carried out a consultation asking if residents wanted parking restrictions. With crowds of 3,000, not many streets were badly affected. We were promised a further consultation if this changed. With 6,000 plus crowds, it is very different. We've been requesting this further consultation for nearly 2 years, but this has not been acted on. Hence this petition calling for the promised consultation. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Culwick to present a petition which calls on the City of York Council to allow Huntington Parish Council to pay for vehicle activated signs on Strensall Road, Huntington, to help reduce speeding.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will indeed present this petition on behalf of residents in Huntington. Following a number of near misses on Strensall Road, there is real concern locally about the speed of traffic and the danger it poses to pedestrians and to other road users. The parish council is willing to pay for vehicle activated signs to help tackle this. This petition, signed by residents of Strensall Road, simply asks City of York Council to allow that to happen. I hope the council will listen to residents and work with the parish council to get these signs installed before someone is seriously injured. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Waller to present a petition on behalf of residents of Westfield, which calls on City of York Council to bring back community skips, tidy up vans to help residents, particularly those without access to a car, to dispose of bulky waste. It also calls on City of York Council to explore options for replacement of the much missed Beckfield Lane tip.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll happy to present this petition. Fly tipping is on the increase, and people want to take pride in the area where they live. And they're also, if they don't have a car, finding it more difficult to dispose of bulky waste items. And therefore, with the discussions that have been had with a number of officers, community skips were raised. And I was blessed to hear the work that the council leader has done in this area at the Association of Public Service Excellence North AGM. So I would just submit the petition signed by hundreds of residents that we call upon the City of York Council to bring back the community skips, tidy up vans to help residents to dispose of bulky waste, especially those without cars, Westfield having a particularly low car ownership. And we do miss Beckfield Lane tip. So an equivalent replacement would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.
I now invite Councillor Watson to present a petition which advocates for the installation of a zebra crossing at the entrance to Wigginton Primary School.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to present this petition on behalf of the 362 residents who have signed it in support of a zebra crossing at the entrance to Wigginton Primary School. Parents, staff and local residents have raised concerns for some time about children having to cross a busy road at the start and end of the school day. This petition calls on the council to install a zebra crossing to make that journey safer. I hope the strength of local support shown by those 362 signatures will encourage the council to act before a serious accident happens. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Watson to present a petition which proposes the installation of a well-marked pedestrian crossing with adequate signage and possibly traffic calming measures near the school entrance at Ralph Butterfield's school.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm also pleased to present this petition on behalf of the 1,048 residents who are calling for a well-marked pedestrian crossing outside Ralph Butterfield School, along with appropriate signage and traffic calming measures. As with the previous petition, this is about keeping children, parents and other pedestrians safe at busy times of the day. The strength of the support shown by over 1,000 signatures demonstrates how important this issue is to the local community and I hope the council will now take action. Further, I echo those comments made earlier by Ruth Pearson. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the item on petitions for this evening. Can I just ask members who have put in petitions to bring them to Julie Gallagher, the head of Democratic Services, at the break, and the members, and they will then be referred to the appropriate decision maker, and the member submitting the petition will be informed of any meeting considering the petition. Thank you. I now invite the Leader of the Council, Councillor Douglas, to present her report, which you will find at agenda item 7 of the Council agenda. Standing orders allow 3 minutes for the presentation of the Leader's report and 3 minutes for any response by other group leaders.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to congratulate our newest Freeman of the City, Ken Cook, on his conferment this evening. He rightly joins an illustrious group of people dedicated to our fine city. Thank you to everyone who came to the extraordinary meeting this evening to witness the occasion and show your respect and support for Ken. And welcome number 1 goes to Richard Webb, the new Chief Executive, to his first meeting of full council following annual council in May. Richard has been meeting with many of you, walking and getting to know your wards, meeting city partners, residents and business owners. It's great to have you on board, Richard. I'm enjoying working with you, and I know you'll agree we've achieved some momentous shifts forward for our fine city already after only 3 months. Thanks for everything you're doing. Thanks also goes to the amazing, dedicated and talented Councillor Pete Kilbane, who stood alongside me as Deputy Leader for the past 3 years. We've collectively achieved a lot for our city and its people, Pete, and I want to thank you for all you've done. Welcome number 2 goes to Councillor Bob Webb, the new Deputy Leader of the Council. You step into big shoes, Bob, but I know you're absolutely more than capable, shown by the exceptional turnaround of children's services since May 2023. We're already working hard for our city, and thank you for everything you have and will do. I also welcome the Right Honourable Lord Mayor of York, Councillor Margaret Wells, to her civic year 26-27 and first full council of the cycle. You've already been tremendously busy around our city. It's been a pleasure to attend visits and events alongside you in the Civic Party, and I wish you all an enjoyable and productive year. And the report in front of you from me as leader and the executive members is a true testament to the can-do, ambitious approach of the Labour-led council. We're achieving a lot for our people in the city, communities and streets, also for our region and country. York Central visit by the Prime Minister, presentation to 180 civil servants at the Treasury and other associated departments, an allocated senior civil service champion for York, neighbourhood caretakers and York Hungry Minds. There is much, much more. Thank you for everything members and officers are doing to achieve so much, often with so little. Your drive, attitude and determination are truly inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. If any of the other group leaders wish to respond to the leader's report, please can they indicate now? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I join the leader in welcoming Richard Webb to his first official council meeting and you on your second visit to the chair. I'll leave it to others to speculate if it's an honour or a curse, but your return does suggest it can't have been too bad. I had noticed the lack of acknowledgement of Councillor Kilbane's term as deputy leader in the report. As with so many others over the last 3 years, the leader's report neither acknowledged Councillor Kilbane's service as deputy leader nor explained why it was apparently his turn for the hatchet job. All opposition councillors can do is speculate. It certainly can't have been performance related. We have an executive member for finance and major projects who has overseen more than £30 million of overspends by delaying, dithering and tinkering with major schemes. while simultaneously creating a £10 million budget black hole, plugged, contrary to all her previous claims, with the one-off emergency measures she promised she would never use. We have an executive member for adults overseeing a failed inspection and now overspending £8 million on expensive temporary staff to keep it going. We have an executive member for housing who, after more than 3 years in office, has not built a single home on council-owned sites and can't even sell the homes that he inherited. We have an executive member for children who has failed to deliver his flagship policy of free school meals for every primary school child. We have an executive member for transport whose cycling data and road condition reporting have become so embarrassing the council has had to invent new ways of presenting the figures, who has questions to answer about proposed bus measures which are likely to make journeys slower and less reliable, and whose botched parking policies have driven residents out of their own city. Quite how bad you have to be to get sacked is unclear. Yes, footfall is down in the city centre, economic activity is down, but this is par for the course with this executive. Perhaps Councillor Kilbane just wasn't bad enough for an executive that will be remembered, if they are remembered at all, as the do-nothing, spend-more generation. Huge overspends, £500,000 payoffs, more and higher taxes, and zero delivery. I will finish my response this evening reflecting, as this report should have done, on the dire situation this council now finds itself in after just 3 years of a Labour council and 2 years of a Labour government and a Labour mayor. A actually genuine budget black hole approaching £10 million. Further cuts to our income over the next few years of £38 million.
5 seconds.
This authority is on the brink of a financial abyss, an abyss that Councillor Douglas referred to as the right thing to do. This executive, this leadership and this government misled and have badly let down the residents of York.
Thank you.
The 2027
Councillor.
elections cannot come quickly enough.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart, did you wish to? No. Right. I will now invite members to question the leader and executive members in respect of any matter within their portfolio responsibility in accordance with Council Procedure Rule B8. Please can you address the Lord Mayor with your question, speaking clearly and indicating to which executive member your question is directed. There is a maximum of 35 minutes in total for questions in this session. As a reminder to members, under the new Council Procedure Rule B8, supplementary questions or comments are limited to 1 question or comment from the original questioner and a total of 1 further question or comment from another member. If any questions which have been put cannot be answered at the meeting, a written reply will be circulated to members within 5 working days following the meeting. I have received details from political groups providing confirmation of those members wishing to ask a question. Councillor Mulroney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is directed to the Executive Member for Housing, Planning and Stronger Communities. I know this Executive Member is passionate about tackling homelessness and particularly street homelessness in our city. What progress has actually been made in helping York residents sleeping rough to get into more stable accommodation? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And you say that I'm passionate about tackling homelessness, and I am, and have been for nearly 30 years now. And that's why it's sad that the leader of the opposition didn't feel worthy to note that as of today, we have now done 4 weeks without a single resident of York who's wanted accommodation being able to access their own accommodation. And so Passion's not enough. It's about commitment, and it's about prioritising what's important. For this administration, we decided that we really wanted to try to end street homelessness in this city. I made that commitment in 2023, and as of today, we've now done 4 weeks without anybody from York being without a roof over their heads. But to some extent, it's not got much to do with me. This is all about those individuals that work in the navigators team, who go out every single day and engage with people who are at their lowest ebb in many cases. It's about the volunteers and the voluntary groups that work with homeless people every day, those people at CareSent, the dinners at Hoping Street Kitchen that they put on at King's Manor every Sunday, and the Salvation Army and the work that they do. Without them caring every single day, York would be in a much more difficult position than it is. So yes, the care that we show to the most vulnerable people in our society is a measure of our humanity. And I will never, ever make apologies for saying they are my priority and they are this city's priority.
Do you have a supplementary? Councillor Healy.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Totally by coincidence, I happen to have the York Human Rights City State of the City Report 2025. Page 41 has a graph, number of rough sleepers on a single autumn night in York. 2022-23 there was 9, 2023-24 there was 15, 24-25 there was 30. So this report would tend to suggest there's a surprising rise. Can the council, sorry, Michael, I can't see. Can Councillor Pavlovic assure us that the figure for 2025-26 will, as he's just outlined, be 0?
Councillor Healy, thank you for making reference to that. And that was a figure from last autumn. And one of the issues that have dogged this council for many years is you do your measure, or historically the measure has been done once a year, the last week of October, and that is the figure then for the rest of the year. I changed that. We now get figures every single week. I see them every week, every Thursday, and when I get the report from the officers about who the count is, who's out, my questions are always, so who's out there? What are we doing with so-and-so? What are we doing with that individual? Can we think about doing this? And the other thing that is not reflected in that figure is that statutorily, we do not have a responsibility to house people with no local connection. That's never been measured before. We now measure those individuals with local connections and those individuals that have a local connection. And I suspect that because temporary people coming to York on a temporary basis, it could be a few days, it could be a few weeks, it could even be a couple of months. We still work with them. That's why it said in my report, we've issued 78 travel warrants to help people get back to an area where they can be accommodated. We've done 600 interventions with people to get them to a stage where they can be ready to move into their own accommodation. And where local connection has been varied by this Labour administration for the first time ever is for veterans for care leavers and for those people fleeing domestic violence. We can now accommodate those people where we couldn't previously. So, as far as York people are concerned, who we have a responsibility for, is this the end of the problem? Of course it's not. Is it the beginning of the end of the problem? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it's certainly a landmark that never before have we been able to evidence 4 weeks of zero York people needing a roof over their heads and not one being available for them. So that's what I commit to, that's what we committed to, and that's what we'll keep working every day to keep delivering.
Councillor Widdowson, do you have a question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes. The question's for Councillor Kilbane. The council's own figures show sales down 8.2%, footfall down 8.8%, fashion spending down over 30% and retail down over 10%, all while resident spending continues to fall. Businesses have repeatedly warned that higher parking charges and policies make it harder for people to visit the city centre and are damaging trade. Does the Executive Member for Economy now accept that the administration's approach has failed, and will they commit to introducing measures such as restoring a low-cost 30-minute parking option and taking other urgent action to bring shoppers and residents back into York?
No, Councillor Widdowson.
Fast answer, many thanks. Sorry.
If you would like me to elaborate, I'm happy to. I can talk at great length. So I think these are very tough times for businesses. I've been talking to a wide range of different businesses, both city centre, businesses in the suburbs, businesses out of town, and it is a very mixed bag. It's fair to say that some types of business sales have been tough, and actually that's not just businesses that are located in the city centre. So while it might be, we obviously have an opposition in the room that likes to score cheap party political points rather than try and deal with the difficult issues that this city faces. And while we are absolutely listening to them, what we know and what we're certain of is flooding the city centre or any part of York for that matter with vehicles is not the answer. This is I think the biggest problem that we've got right now is that the leader of the biggest economy in the world is incredibly unstable. He's a very unstable man who changes what he's doing with the world's resources on a daily basis, and that makes everybody a little bit nervous. So what we need to do is restore confidence with people, restore confidence amongst spenders, and one of the ways of doing that is to show love for the businesses and the places, whether that's in the city centre or indeed out in Acomb, as we saw recently, and give people the confidence to go out there and spend their money. And that's entirely what we should all be doing in this city, rather than talking it down on an endless doom loop because it suits your own political advantage. Although I think most people see through the petty party politics that are operated by the Lib Dems and are pleased that there are grown-ups in charge of this council that they can work with and plan with for the long-term future. Business knows it's tough. They know the challenges that we face, but together we can see them through. And York, these are snapshot figures. I'm not being complacent, but we do need to see how they play out. I mean, I'm sure Councillor Widdowson's aware that actually vehicle movements around the city have stayed steady for the past 10 years. We do have vehicle counters all over the city, on the ring roads, on the city centre roads, and actually what that shows is that the trends for vehicle movements have stayed steady. Now, that's the achievement in itself, because in most places vehicle movements are going up, and in most places we need to get those vehicle movements down. However, there's not less vehicle movements around this city, but at the same time,
We've got more people using the buses. We've got more people cycling. Actually, thank you, Councillor Eyre. And we've got more people moving around the way that is sustainable for the long-term future of businesses in this city. And that's what the people who I talk to are interested in. It's their long-term sustainable future, not cheap political shots.
Do you have a supplementary?
Many thanks, Lord Mayor. Can I bring you back to the economic position of the city centre, please? Can the executive member point to a single one of these headline indicators, sales, footfall, or retail performance that has improved under your watch? And if not, why should the businesses have confidence that the current strategy is working?
Sure. I mean, if you look at the whole of the period that we've been in charge, we did see increases for that first period. But obviously, as the national economy, on all of those indicators, but as the national economy stutters because of the international position, as well as a whole host of other things, we're facing similar issues that the rest of the country is facing. I don't know, Councillor Widdowson, did you look at overnight stays in York? How many people that we've got visiting the city? So we are through the roof with overnight stays. We've got more people staying in our city than ever before. And that's the kind of thing we should be celebrating, those high spending people staying in our city, enjoying everything that we've got to offer. And we need to be encouraging that. Business is all about confidence. The more you talk it down, the worse it's going to be. So we need to talk it up.
Councillor Rose, is that supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thanks for mentioning ACOM and ACOM Fest, and it was great to see you at ACOM Fest, and it was great to see our regional mayor and a lot of support from a lot of people. We had record footfall, we had record sales, which is obviously great. I just wondered if you could add to ways in which across the city and suburbs and city centre, cultural events, including York Beard and ACOM Fest, are making a difference to the economy in a positive way. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Rose. And it was great to see you and the other Labour councillors enjoying ACOM Fest. I didn't actually notice any other councillors from any other parties, but I'm sure they were there, and I just didn't notice them. I come from Liverpool, and I grew up in Liverpool in the 80s when Conservative ministers talked about putting it into managed decline. What we saw in Liverpool was the recovery of that city based upon the spirit of the people who live there, pretty much like the spirit of the people who live in your ward in Acomb, Councillor, but also culture and sport. People believing in the city because of their successful teams and because of the investment in their own culture and a celebration of their own culture. And that's what brought people back to Liverpool, plus investment. So we've got all those things going on in Acomb now, for example. We've got a celebration of the culture of the place, of the people of the place, but we've also got that £99,999 investment from the Labour Mayor into the fabric of Acomb that will be there for years to come, giving people confidence in that place, a celebration of that place. And instead of it being like a fortress surrounded with bollards, since this administration has come into place, Acomb is better. It's there for everybody to see, for everybody to experience. Acomb, like our sports teams, are better under Labour.
Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A question for Councillor Villiers. Can she please give me an update on the amendments to the position of the 20-mile-an-hour in Bishopthorpe to allow the 40-30 approach into the village? As I'm sure that those who would like their own 20-mile-an-hour speed limit will want to see the agreed common sense changes are implemented in a reasonable time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Nichols, for that question. I've been talking to the officers about this very scheme recently, and what they have done is they have designed a gateway approach that we can use for all 20 and 30 mile per hour villages and communities. And they've got 4 different designs for the gateway, and they are now looking at which gateway approach will be best for the entrances to Bishopthorpe. And they are intending to put those in quite soon and then move on to doing 20 miles per hour for Dunnington village, which was the next village that had requested 20 miles per hour. So work is ongoing, and I will happily ask the officers to share with you the designs they have for the gateway approach to make Bishopthorpe a safe place to be, where drivers are aware as soon as they get near to the village that they need to slow down, and local people can enjoy the lovely atmosphere in your village.
Councillor Nichols, do you have a supplementary?
I did have, but she answered it.
Councillor Coles.
Supplementary to Councillor Avilius, just whether she can set out any further plans that she may have to improve road safety in other parts of the city, in particular in the Westfield ward, where we would love to see more road safety investment, both in terms of street-based changes and speed changes too.
Yes, it's a concern across most of the city, and many communities, unfortunately, are coming forward and saying they want to see safer streets, and that's understandable and something we want to achieve. So we are looking at a variety of measures and road safety schemes across the city, including vehicle activated signs, which I think there was a petition for earlier. So there will be some areas that have asked for vehicle activated signs, which flash the speed as you approach an area and are shown to really help slow drivers down. And then we are also bringing forward some specific road safety schemes around schools. So we're bringing forward school streets and some sustainable travel areas where we'll be doing areas including pedestrian crossings and widened pavements and cycle infrastructure that just make a calmer and quieter road. In terms of what exactly is happening in Westfield, I believe there are vehicle activated signs, and the pedestrian crossings are currently being looked at across the whole city and assessed by officers, and they'll be coming forward with recommendations of which pedestrian crossings we can start delivering as soon as possible. So I will give you some news as soon as I hear more.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a question for the Executive Member for Finance, Performance and Major Projects. Will the Executive Member offer a full and unreserved public apology to the Council taxpayers of York over the outrageous overspend on the Station Gateway project, and indicate how, along with the Executive Member, staff, both past and present, will be held accountable? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. I thought I wasn't going to get any questions this evening. The Station Gateway scheme was, of course, a scheme we inherited, the contract for which was signed just before we took over administration in 2023. Don't shake your head, Councillor Eyre. You know it was. We've got the receipts, and that contract locked us into liability for overspends and costs. The contract also didn't include essential features of accessibility, such as compliance with LTN 120, which meant that changes had to be made. And because of the nature of the contract, the cost for those changes had to be borne by the council. The nature of the contract also meant that other changes that were necessary during the course of the project, such as when we find unusual and unexpected things when we start digging in the ground, which happens so often in York, the cost for those also had to be borne by the council and no one else. This matter has been subject of scrutiny, an audit report, a further scrutiny meeting, a full discussion at Audit and Governance, and we have put in place many measures to make sure that this council is not in this position again. We can't be in a position again where we're locked into a contract where we bear the liability for all costs. We can't be in a position again where there is absolutely no infrastructure around decision making, contract management, programme management for big developments like this. We have put the work in we have worked with officers, we have brought in expertise when we needed it, and we have put things in place to make sure that this council will not be in that position again. We've made sure that the council has the right infrastructure, that we are open to scrutiny, that we discuss things when they go wrong so that everyone can learn the lessons and so that we don't make the same mistakes again. I wish I could say the same for everybody else. And the imperative now is for us to get on and finish delivering the Station Gateway scheme before that contract exposes us to any further liabilities. And I'm really grateful to all of the officers, to fellow members from right across the chamber who've worked on this through scrutiny and audit and governance, to everyone who has put their efforts into putting right everything that has gone wrong with this project. And to answer the specific question that Councillor Waters asked, I have been very frank and open about the overspend on Station Gateway. I have been very open during all of the many meetings we've had to scrutinise this. I've been very open when talking with members, with officers, with members of the public and with partners about what has gone wrong here and what we need to do to put it right. And will I apologise for an overspend? Well, I want to make it clear that an overspend on a project like this is not like an overspend on my weekly dog treats budget. It isn't the case that I just got one extra dog treat in my basket and that sent me over budget because I was profligate. Overspends on projects like this are to deliver what is needed to be delivered for the people of York. Many of the overspends are driven by international price pressures, which we have very little control over here in little old York. And we can't simply stop and give up a project halfway through just because the cost of materials or the cost of labour or the cost of anything else suddenly increases. We have to continue and deliver those projects and make sure that the people of York get good quality, good value for money product at the end of it. And what this will deliver is a station gateway worthy of York and that our residents should be able to enjoy for many years to come.
Councillor Waters, do you have a supplementary?
Certainly do, Lord Mayor, thank you. I've sat here and listened to similar sort of excuses since 2011. Every major project this council's been involved in has cost the taxpayers of this city millions and millions and millions of pounds over budget. It's disgraceful. So I just return to the second part of the question that I asked you, Executive Member. Can you indicate how, along with yourself as Executive Member, staff, both past and present, will be held accountable? It's no good telling the taxpayers of York that we're going to have to cut this, that and the other because all this money's been wasted. Nobody is ever held accountable for these fiascos. Nobody.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. And I was deliberately not addressing that part of your question because, as you know, we don't discuss staffing issues in full council meetings. If that's something that you want to discuss, I suggest that you take it through the relevant scrutiny committees, audit and governance, which have been looking at the issues, but I won't be commenting on individual staffing issues.
We had several people wanting to make a supplementary, but Councillor Eyre was first.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm grateful for the Executive Member confirming that it was design changes that led to the increase in costs. So can she answer why there was not a public decision when those design changes were made, whether or not that decision went through the York Station Gateway Board, whether that's York Station Gateway Board, how many times that met between 2023 and 2025, and why requests for the agendas for those board meetings have not yet been provided to opposition councillors?
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'm not aware of any requests for any board meeting papers, so I'm afraid I can't answer that. I suggest that you follow it up with the person that you requested them from, but you certainly have never discussed that with me or corresponded with me about it. In terms of the changes to make sure that the scheme was compliant with the appropriate legislation and guidelines have to be made. And so we made the changes to make sure that what we were building was compliant with the relevant legislation and guidance. We've continued to have to make changes because the design of the scheme designed in some accessibility challenges, which we wanted, of course, to take away. And you will know, Councillor Eyre, that we are an administration that takes accessibility very seriously. And so it was incumbent on us to make sure that we corrected issues with the design, and we continue to do so and have continued to do so up to very recently, rectifying issues with the way that the scheme had been designed and put together. So it's a absolutely huge challenge when you inherit a scheme like this, to be able to pull it back and make sure that you're meeting basic accessibility standards, design guides, legislation and guidance. That's a massive challenge, but it's the right thing to do. We couldn't, in all conscience, continue to build a scheme that excluded people from use of it. We couldn't continue to build a scheme that had inaccessibility designed in instead of inclusion designed in. And I'm certain that you know all of this because you've been in most of the discussions around it, where we have extensively scrutinised what the changes were, when and how the changes were made at each stage. So I invite you to revisit those discussions. I'm very happy to do so. But much of the detail of that was done in private session for a reason. So I'm not going to be going into all of the detail about that yet again for a fourth or fifth time on this. But the important point is we had to rescue a scheme that we inherited from you, that was inaccessible, that where the contract left this council liable for all changes, all overruns and all delays, even when they're caused by partners who are involved in the project. Yes, it does. And so we were left with that and left having to try to rescue a scheme that designed in exclusion and inaccessibility, that put people at the bottom of the hierarchy of transport needs. And we had to do something about that. So what we did was we looked at the guidance, we looked at the legislation, we looked at the standards that are expected when designing highway schemes, and we applied them. And that, of course, is the right thing to do. And I'm not going to say that we didn't do that. Of course we did.
All right, thank you for that. We've now only got 6 minutes left. Councillor Vassey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On the 19th of May, local residents and myself reported a large pile of fly-tipped waste on Neyburn Lane between Deaton and Neyburn. A couple of days later, officers sent someone to have a look. They discovered there was asbestos in the waste, declared it a hazard and placed a sheet of plastic over it with a tiny sticker, about 2 centimetres by 4, advising of hazardous waste. 8 weeks later, the rubbish is still there, sitting partially in the watercourse, the plastic sheet regularly blowing off and dust flying about. I'm told that it is difficult because the waste is hazardous. I've responded by suggesting that if this waste had been dumped in Parliament Street, it would have been moved in 24 hours. Now I've just learned that a local resident has, as an act of public service, picked the plastic sheet up and replaced it when he's seen it blown away in order to stop the dust going about.
Does the executive member agree with me that it's unacceptable for fly-tipped waste, whether it is hazardous or not, to sit in a country lane for 2 months?
Councillor
Hopefully.
Massey,
When will the rubbish be removed?
can you just confirm which executive member the question's directed at?
The executive member for public realm.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vassy. And I think everyone in this chamber deplores any kind of fly tipping whatsoever. It's a criminal offence. It's an assault on our environment. It harms our wildlife. It harms our public health and it blights where we live. And I condemn it wholeheartedly. I'm really sorry to hear this. We've raised it with me previously. All fly tipping should be dealt with. That containing hazardous material, especially so. I know that it has been looked into sensitively. I don't know what type of asbestos it is, and that does make a difference into disposal. So if it's dust, clearly it's immediately dangerous. If it's solid asbestos, actually, you can assure your resident that it's likely to have no impact whatsoever. But it was an assessment of the type of asbestos which was needed to be done. And my understanding was that that had been undertaken or was being undertaken. It's been followed up repeatedly. I'm assured that investigation and assessment is ongoing. I can only apologise that it hasn't happened, but it's been given the most urgent attention and I will follow it up straight after this meeting. But I would like to say that you know that this is a concern because we've corresponded about it. And fly tipping across the city is a concern because of the destruction it brings. And that's why it's really pleasing to end this part of the council meeting on a happier note. It's delightful to have received a Green Flag Award in Hull Road Park, a new addition to our armoury of green flag parks, which is also a testament to the hard work of council staff, volunteers, ward councillors who've worked tirelessly there to bring celebratory events, clean the water, bring endangered species of water vole into the park, just in time to celebrate its 100th birthday next year. And our Park Investment Fund is a tribute to that and is part of the reason that we show not just that we're concerned about fly tipping, but all our public spaces. And investment has been put in where it's been too long neglected. I understand.
Lord Mayor.
I understand. Sorry, just to follow up in case there's a supplementary. I've been told that it's scheduled for removal this Saturday or Sunday. That's the hazardous waste, not the green flag. Thanks.
Supplementary, Lord Mayor.
Vassy.
If I may, you won't be surprised to know that the resident won't be terribly encouraged to know that green flags are awarded elsewhere.
Councillor Vassy, can I just, maybe I can summarise just by saying I will talk to you afterwards and do my best. I'm not a public health expert, but obviously, and I didn't mean to be flippant. I show no disrespect to that resident or to the seriousness of the matter by wanting to celebrate the fact that we do care about our environment and show that in serious investment across the city. Thank you.
Councillor Vassy, will you take this at a later time? Thank you.
Yes, I'll continue it later
Right,
with the
thank you.
executive members.
Councillor Waters, is that a supplementary?
Yes, it is, Lord Mayor. I think everybody's getting sidelined here, understandably, with the health concerns, but 8 weeks for a pile of fly tip rubbish and it's still not shifted. 8 weeks and supposedly it's asbestos. Fair enough. If it's bonded asbestos, just wants damping down. If it's more hazardous asbestos, you just get asbestos contractors in. Are they all on holiday for the last 2 months? Why hasn't it been moved? I'm just absolutely amazed.
Councillor Waters, I share your frustration. I have raised it on regular occasions. I understand it is a difficulty with contractors. This is heavily legislated. It's very well protected and there are fewer people doing it to the requisite level. We know that there are rogue waste carriers operating across the city. We see that in fly tipping across the nation, and it's important that we get the right people, and it is heavily legislated. So although I've been pursuing it with urgency, I share your frustration, but I'm led to understand that it is very difficult to have got it done at this point. But I'm not happy about that, and we're making sure that this is attended to with urgency and will be in the future should it happen again.
Thank you, members. That concludes the questions. I now invite Councillor Douglas to move the recommendations of Executive arising from its meeting held on the 7th of July 2026 in relation to Capital Programme Outturn 2025-26 and the revisions to the 2026-27 to 2029-30 programme.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendations, but suggest that we take them as two separate votes, both for the environment, for transport spending, and secondly for the York Museums Trust funding. Perhaps the monitoring officer can advise as to how we go about that.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, it's been suggested, members, that this is dealt with by way of two separate votes rather than a single vote. The first vote relating to the environment, which is referred to in the papers at paragraph A3 and A4. And then the second vote would relate to the remaining elements of the executive recommendations. Does that meet with members' accord as a way forwards?
Just as a point of order, Lord Mayor, just for clarification, then can I ask the monitoring officer, does that mean that the board members of the YMT can return to the meeting for A and recuse themselves from B?
Yes, that will be the case. So those who are have to excuse themselves as a result of section A can then return for the remainder.
Thank you.
So
this is a little bit confusing.
So
could that be repeated, please? The acoustics back here are terrible.
Right. No problem.
is that again?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for clarity for all members, there will be two votes in relation to the approval of the executive recommendations. The first vote will take place in relation to recommendation A, capital programme outturn, and in particular in relation to the environment element of this. The second vote will take place in relation to the remainder of the executive recommendation. So for those members who had an interest and had to step out for any element of this, you are welcome to remain for the part where you are not conflicted.
Could I have a seconder?
Formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now invite debate on the recommendations. Please indicate if you wish to speak, and when called upon, say clearly which recommendation you wish to comment on. We'll then take a vote with the separate things. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Chair. I'd seek clarity from the monitoring officer because surely when you're approving the total capital programme, that includes the funding to YMT as part of the overall capital programme. So I would have thought you'd be conflicted on both of those, and the vote should follow sequentially that way. But that wasn't the point I was going to raise. The point I just wanted to flag is why we're voting, has to be voted separately, is that we still have outstanding issues about that process of environment and the decision-making process that was undertaken. I know members of the public have submitted lengthy questions about how that has been approached. I do believe the chair of A&G has also asked for more information about whether that was the correct process in terms of how the environment was done. So at the point until those outstanding questions have not been clarified requiring about the environment, we don't feel comfortable in approving a capital programme that includes that environment.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Okay, thank you for that, councillor. Can I suggest that we now move to a vote in relation to recommendation A, which is the capital programme outturn. That obviously includes the environment that is the subject that has been mentioned earlier. So for anyone who has an interest in that, you need to step out of the room, and then we will take the vote. No? No, that's fine. So can we see all those in favour of the recommendation?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, that's 23, Lord Mayor. All those against the recommendation? 16. Yeah. So 17, Lord Mayor. And any abstentions? 3 abstentions. So that recommendation is approved. Can we now move on to vote in relation to recommendation B? I can see 2 councillors departing. We'll pause. And then, yeah. All those in favour of recommendation B? Okay. Is that everybody except Mark Waters? Except Waters. Except Mark, yeah. Okay. That's 42, Lord Mayor. All those against? And all those abstaining? Councillor Waters, that's 1, Lord Mayor. So that is carried, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Recommendation C. We'll take that, so yeah. It's been pointed out, councillors, that there is a recommendation C, so we will take a separate vote in relation to recommendation C, which relates to receipt of funding from MHCLG. All those in favour? Yeah. That's 42 again, Lord Mayor. All those against? Any abstentions? 1, Lord Mayor. So that is approved, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, members. That was rather complicated, wasn't it? I'm now going to propose that we have a short break. Can you, 10 minutes? Is that long enough?
Did you want to come back at 10 past, which is 12, about 12 minutes?
If you can all return by 10 past. Thank Thank you, members. Let's get on with item 10, annual scrutiny report. I now invite Councillor Fenton to move the recommendations in relation to the annual scrutiny report 2025-26.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'm delighted to move approval of the scrutiny annual report, which after a gap of a number of years is good to see this report back. I would like to start by thanking James Parker, our scrutiny officer, for the work he's undertaken in pulling the report together, and to the Democratic Services team who support the scrutiny function so well. I think in contrast to full council, scrutiny is for the most part a safe space for cross-party discussion, productive discussion, informing policy development and undertaking genuine scrutiny with a view to improving the services that our residents rely on. This report reflects the progress made in the first year since changes were made to the operation of scrutiny. That was in response to the action plan arising from the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny review. I'd like to thank members of scrutiny, executive members, officers for their engagement, their time, their commitment, and their goodwill. Particularly thankful to members who've undertaken a number of task and finish group pieces of work, sometimes at very short notice, and that has required a degree of flexibility without which it wouldn't have been possible to have completed that work. I look forward to the changes that have been made this year continuing to be fine-tuned and embedded, and I look forward to the year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fenton. May I have a seconder?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Very much appreciate being able to second this report and Councillor Fenton's comments. This report represents and covers the major steps forward that have been taken in how scrutiny operates in this council. Substantial change has been made with full cross-party cooperation. However, there's a lot further to go in terms of achieving advanced identification of pre-scrutiny items, maximising the use of the all-member briefing sessions on appropriate items to ensure that the scrutiny itself and the task and finish groups can focus on deeper, more genuine scrutiny. Definitely a work in progress, and thanks to everyone who has helped to make that happen, officers and members from all parties.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to debate the recommendations, or is council happy to agree? Thank you. We will now move on to the next item. I now invite Councillor Fisher to move the recommendations in relation to the Joint Standards Committee Annual Report 2025-26.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I move that we receive and note the report of the annual, Joint Standards Annual Report? Could I thank all those city councillors, the parish and town councillors, and the independent persons and the supporting officers who have made the work of this committee run extremely smoothly. Thank you.
May I have a seconder? Oh, sorry, Councillor Pavlovic.
It's all right, I'm easily missed. Yes, formally seconded, Lord Mayor, and I would just like both to echo Councillor Fisher's comments, but also I'd like to put on record the huge thanks to our Democratic Services Officer, Jane, and I'd like to see that minuted, and also Julia, our Head of Democratic Services, without neither of whom that committee could function effectively. So, formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to debate the recommendations, or is council happy to agree? Thank you. We will now move on to the next item. I now invite Councillor Steels-Walshaw to move the recommendations in relation to the Director Public Health Annual Report 2025-26.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So today I am presenting the second annual report from our Director of Public Health, Peter Roderick. Each year, he provides the council with an independent assessment of the health of our population, usually centred on a single theme. This year, he's chosen one that is too often unseen, too often underestimated, and too often devastating, and that is gambling harms in York. As many of you know, my background in addiction is in addiction and recovery, and I have seen firsthand the real damage that addiction can cause, not only to the individual, but to everyone who loves them, supports them, and tries to encourage them to rebuild their lives. Gambling harm is no different. It's silent, it's hidden, and it's growing. Just this week, I've attended the remembrance service at the Recovery Hub to remember those who we've needlessly lost to addiction. And Peter's report, You Bet, You Win, reveals the scale of that harm in our city. It shows how changes in the gambling market, especially the rapid expansion of online gambling, have widened to highly addictive products. This is now a serious public health issue. And while access has widened, profits have soared, with gambling companies doubling their annual profits to 16 billion. The impact on York is stark. Over 6,000 adults may benefit from gambling treatment or support. More than 3,000 children in our city are living with someone affected by harmful gambling, and 1 in 12 residents are harmed by someone else's gambling. Evidence locally and nationally links gambling harm to financial crisis, suicide, relationship breakdown, homelessness, and early death. Ultimately, we want people to enjoy gaming and sport for what they are. We want people to have money in their pockets, not be trapped with addictive products designed to keep them spending long after the fun's gone. This report challenges the methods that the gambling industry uses to hook people in. In this digital age, the gambling industry has developed sophisticated tools that extract huge sums from those most at risk. The result is financial hardship, damaged relationships, and tragically lives lost. Peter's report is clear. This harm is preventable by taking a public health approach, tackling aggressive marketing, ending industry involvement in regulation, and improving early identification and strengthening support. We can reduce suffering and protect our communities. This report also highlights a lack of awareness of gambling harm and limited local support pathways. As with so many health inequalities, people in more deprived communities are more likely to experience harm, and there are higher concentrations of gambling venues in those areas. To address this report sets out 10 recommendations, and these include establishing a citywide gambling harm network, increasing training for frontline staff, improving early identification through health services, expanding recovery and peer support, and supporting national efforts to restrict gambling advertising. The report is also clear that local action alone is not enough. Stronger national regulation is needed on advertising, product design, and industry practices alongside sustained investment in prevention and treatment. This is why, as a council, we have today signed to become a member of the National Coalition to End Gambling Ads and have welcomed the Chief Executive of the campaign to West offices to discuss their work with us. We are committed to a system, to taking action, to raising awareness, improving access to support, and reducing the impact of harmful gambling across York's communities. This report provides a clear roadmap for how we can do that and how we'll play our part in delivering meaningful change for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to debate the recommendations, or is... Oh, Councillor Nichols.
Yes, thank you. I do welcome the report. My concerns are, and just have some good news, the figure on page 145 of 2.7%, is actually down to 2.4%. So it is a positive outcome. What concerns that is that the disappointment of the base of the report, the GSGB statistics are questionable. One of theirs on football pools, for example, had 694% more people playing football pools than actually registered to play football pools. They're renowned for their inaccurate gathering of data. For example, that 2.4 figure, the NHS has it at 0.7% when they do gambling. There's no reference to any NHS surveys of gambling in this report. The Gambling Commissioner are renowned as a source throughout this and not really very impartial. They actually fund lobby groups against gambling. Though I welcome the recommendations and I welcome anything that stops people gambling with a problem, I don't think it's helpful to have a source and a report that is written from a biased point of view. If you're going to tackle gambling, you need to tackle it from the actual truth as opposed to people and their lobbying. And I totally agree when you say it's not a local problem or a national problem even, it's an international problem. The biggest problem that gambling has is the black market. That is where most of the issues, and that's where the people have the biggest problems. They know how to go and get a bet on. It is not a betting shop, which I don't think we've had a betting shop open in this city for about 20 years. So I say I'm not going to be voting against it. I will support it, but I do think it's a little bit lazy to just take lobbying groups' views of gambling rather than what actually goes on in the gambling industry and using all the statistics that are available. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lomas, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It will come as no surprise to anyone to hear that I fully support the recommendation here and support the report that's been prepared. And I think it's important to understand that the harms that gambling causes are pernicious. They're often secret and hidden and unseen until the very worst outcomes happen. I think it's also important to understand that on any issue where there is potential for massive amounts of profit to be made, there will be many differing groups giving differing versions of statistics to support their own position. And I think none of that undermines the message at the core of this report, which is that there are gambling harms throughout our communities, and we must work as a council across the city using a public health approach to address those gambling harms. And just last week, I was at the LGA conference and went to a fringe meeting around gambling-related suicide. And it was really great to hear that as a council, we're already taking all of the steps that were recommended for councils to take. And what this report does is this moves us out of just exploring the steps that we as a council need to take and working cross-city in partnership on a public health basis to address the deep and tragic harms that gambling can do within our communities.
Does anybody else wish to speak? I am going to take Councillor Steels-Walshaw, did you wish to speak? No. I am going to take a vote on this. All those happy to agree, please raise your hand. Right, thank you very much. That's unanimous. We'll now move on to the next item. I now invite Councillor Myers to move the recommendations in relation to the North Yorkshire Police Fire and Crime Panel Annual Report 2025-26.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to move this report to Council this evening. As of today, I am the acting chair of the North Yorkshire Police Fire and Crime Panel, following changes at North Yorkshire Council yesterday. I've served as vice chair for 3 years, and I should say thank you to panel members from this authority, which is Councillor Knight and Councillor Pavlovic. We have done a detailed programme of scrutiny work this year, including wildlife crime, police complaints, the inspection reports from North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and the scrutiny of its community risk management plan. And I would remind members of our statutory functions, which are to review and make recommendations on the Mayor's draft police and crime plan, the draft fire and rescue plan, and the draft annual reports for both policing and the fire and rescue service. And then finally, we also, the panel has the power of veto and can review and make recommendations on appointments to the role of Chief Constable, Chief Fire Officer, and also for the proposed level of council tax precept. I ask you to note the contents of that report. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. May I have a seconder? Councillor Pavlovic.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Does anybody wish to debate the recommendations, or is council happy to agree? Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item. I now invite Councillor Fenton to move the recommendations in relation to the City of York Council Boundary Commission Phase 2 Ward Boundaries Council submission.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So, first of all, thank you to the Task and Finish group, which did this piece of work in a short period of time to have discussions on a cross-party basis with a view to arriving at some recommendations on which there could be agreements to go forward to the Boundary Commission as part of their consultation into the proposed ward boundaries. So the recommendations which were presented to corporate scrutiny on the 6th of July and were approved by corporate scrutiny are set out at paragraph 5 of the covering paper. So the options available for the full council the recommendation is to agree to the submission to the Boundary Commission of the recommendation set out at paragraph 5 as endorsed by the Corporate Scrutiny Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
Second formally and reserve the right.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to debate the recommendations, or is council happy to agree? Right, well,
there were two others to this, so I'm happy to do it. Do you want me to?
Okay, thank you, members. So in relation to the recommendations you have before you, you'll see the options are set out at paragraphs 20 and 21 of that paper on page 207 of your pack. So the first question is council content to submit a cross-party submission or not content? So those who are in favour of submitting a cross-party submission, please raise your hand. Yeah, that appears to be.
Yep.
Sorry?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, members. Those against, just for clarity. And any abstentions? One. So then we move on to, is council content to make the submission that is contained in this report? Or would council prefer not? So can we have those who are content to make the submission as contained in the report? Those in, please. Yeah, okay. Those against? And abstentions? Council. Okay, so that is concluded. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
thank you. Before we move on to the next item, I'm going to ask the monitoring officer to say a few words.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, we've now moved on to item 15, which relates to changes to the scheme of delegation. Post the publication of this, I've had a degree of feedback from some members in relation to what I consider a thankfully small number of items in relation to the number of changes that are made. So those relate to the power that is contained in there for the Section 151 officer to receive grants directly and approve the receipt of those grants. In relation to that, I've been asked to clarify that there will be a quarterly reporting on that, and the Section 151 officer has confirmed that they are happy to do so. So we will amend it to include a reference to quarterly reporting for such received grants. The second item relates to a delegation from the head of paid service to allow the monitoring officer and the Section 151 officer the ability to take any decision that they are legally capable of doing so. So there are some decisions that they aren't because of specific professional qualifications. The third item relates to the power of the monitoring officer to attend such meetings as they consider appropriate for purposes of investigation, etc. For those two items, I'm happy to say we will take those away. We will defer any implementation of those, and we'll take those across to audit and governance to have a broader discussion about those. And the final point relates to the thresholds set out in relation to the head of paid service and the chief HR officer being raised from £120,000 to £150,000. As I understand it, the consensus is that figure is accepted, but the broader principle of what those paragraphs are there for perhaps needs some further exploration. So we will leave the paragraphs as they stand in the amended version, but we will take the broader principle to audit and governance and have that broader debate there. Thank you for that. I will now move on for other members to continue.
I now invite Councillor Hollier to move the recommendations in relation to changes to the scheme of delegation.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And yes, I'm happy to move the recommendations as sort of discussed there by Bryn. And, I look forward to our discussions on those issues in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Rose.
Yes, very happy to second. Thank you.
Does he speak? Does anybody wish to debate the recommendations, or is council happy to agree? Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item. Appointments and changes to membership. Do I have council's agreement to note the appointments and changes to membership? Thank you, members. We now move to agenda item 17 to consider 3 motions on notice submitted under Standing Order B10. Details of the motions are included as part of the agenda pack, with the amendments contained as part of the agenda supplement pack. I now invite Councillor Vassy to move the first motion in relation to access to transport for all.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So let's see if we can do things differently this evening, because we can't go on like this, can we? And as we suffer our second heat wave in a few weeks, we all know it. Councillors of all parties on scrutiny committees who have challenged the council's indifference to acting on EV know it. The speakers who turn up to plead with us at public meetings know it. This council's leader and deputy leader who signed up to the York and North Yorkshire strategy for a sustainable future in March, they know it. The Lord Mayor, in her reminder about the urgency of the climate emergency, she knows it. The young people who marched through York streets calling for climate justice, and the children in our schools, and our own families and our loved ones, and the NHS and even the government, all of them, all of us, we know that we cannot go on like this. We have to cut carbon emissions from transport, and we know it. No more excuses and delaying tactics. It's too late for that nonsense. To deliver the change we need to see, we need everyone who owns a car to have a fair opportunity to switch away from petrol or diesel cars towards electric vehicles. Everyone. Not just people in this or that type of house, not just posh people with garages or people with drives. Everyone. including those living in the 12,000 York homes on terrace streets and the thousands more living in flats. Everyone. The government gets it. That's why they're offering grants of 500 quid to help residents get cross-pavement charging devices installed. They acknowledge that an approach that leaves millions of residents across the country paying 10 to 15 times more than others to charge an electric car is patently unfair and will not deliver the change we need. The Combined Authority wants change. On the 27th of March this year, their executive, made up of Councillor Douglas, Councillor Kilbane from York, Councillor Les and Dad from North Yorkshire County Council, and the Regional Mayor, David Scaife, voted unanimously to approve the Sustainable Future Strategy that includes a commitment to approach the local electric vehicle infrastructure initiative for funding specifically to roll out cross-pavement charging solutions. And Levy responded by giving £250,000 specifically for that reason. I know that because the heads of Levy and the head of the Office for Zero Emission Vehicles have confirmed this. Other local authorities are showing leadership. In 2021, Oxford Council launched gully charging to help residents in homes without off-street parking to join the switch to electric vehicles. Other schemes were launched and trials started. Those trials have been a success, and now 46 local authorities up and down the country are either offering cross-pavement charging to their residents now or have committed to do so by the end of this year. It is too late now to show leadership, but we could at least join the middle of the pack, couldn't we? We could at least now give 12,000 residents the opportunity to install gully chargers and join charger sharing schemes and community charging apps. After all, we've been given the money to do it. As Councillor Widdowson and I have spoken with Micklegate residents, we've heard the same stories over and over again. One said, "I've just changed my car. We had to buy another petrol car because the costs of switching to electric didn't add up." Another said, "I'd love to switch to an EV if I could." Another said, "It's so unfair. Why should we pay more than anyone else?" Some only knew they weren't allowed to switch to EV. Who in this room believes that young people marching for climate justice only want people who live in houses with drives to cut their carbon emissions from transport? Nobody. The young simply want all adults to do everything they can to deliver climate change now, or I should say, cutting the emissions to deliver change. So this motion calls straightforwardly for the council to get on with rolling out cross-pavement charging, using more or less the same language as the Sustainable Future Strategy signed up to unanimously by Councillors Douglas and Kilbane back in March. We all know the council is all too often a pantomime where parties strut the stage, blowing our trumpets, delivering nothing. This could be different if we all demonstrate that we do recognise the urgency of this moment and vote for this motion rather than supporting the platitudes, alarmist gaslighting about hidden costs and all the rest of the delay fest that is the amendment. Please, for our collective future, support this.
Thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Widdowson.
Seconded, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to second this motion. At its heart, this is about fairness. If you have a driveway, you can charge your electric car overnight for a fraction of the cost of using a public charger. But if you live in one of York's many terrace streets, you simply don't have that option. That's not fair. And it's a barrier to people making the switch to electric vehicles. What's particularly frustrating is that solutions now exist. The government has put funding on the table specifically for cross-pavement charging technologies. Other councils are already looking at pavement channel and gully systems because they've solved the obvious safety concerns around trailing cables. So the question's simple. If there is funding available, if the technology exists, and if other councils are already doing it, why isn't York? Unfortunately, this is where ideology gets in the way of common sense. Too often, this administration approaches transport from the starting point that people shouldn't own cars, rather than recognising that many residents rely on a car because they have no realistic alternative. Decisions seem designed to make life that little bit harder. But the reality is that many of York residents need a car. Some disabled people have one as a mobility aid. Others work shifts when buses simply aren't running. Many tradespeople can't carry their tools on a bike. Families caring for relatives often have little choice but to drive, and some people commute to other cities to work. Owning a car isn't a lifestyle choice for everyone. For many people, it's a necessity. If we're serious about reducing emissions, then we should be making it easier for those people to move from petrol and diesel vehicles to electric ones, not putting obstacles in their way. The motion doesn't ask the council to install charging channels on every street tomorrow. It asks us to look at something far more sensible. Review the technology, examine the legal and accessibility issues, identify pilot locations, bring the findings back to scrutiny so councillors can make an informed decision and take action. This is a measured, evidence-led approach. York's already shown leadership with the hyperhubs. We should be equally ambitious about residential charging so that people without driveways aren't left behind. Supporting electric vehicle charging isn't about encouraging more traffic. It's about recognising that cars people already rely on could become cleaner, cheaper to run and easier to charge. I hope all councillors will support this unamended.
Thank you. Notice has been received of an amendment to the motion as set out in the supplementary papers. I now invite Councillor Whitcroft to move the amendment to the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In this chamber, there are a number of routine events and occurrences by now which we can almost set our watch. I'm sure the millions watching at home delight in coming up with their own bingo cards for what will happen here at full council, whether it's Councillor Vassy mentioning a European city, Councillor Stewart calling Councillor Healy a Thatcherite, or Councillor Baxter seconding one of my motions again. In what is becoming a worryingly routine fixture, I would like to move an amendment on the Liberal Democrat motion. First of all, I do want to thank Councillor Vassy for introducing this motion. As a councillor who represents a ward with many terrace streets and residents who are doing their part with the green transition, I welcome the opportunity to have this discussion. And I'm keen to see the introduction of better car charging solutions on our streets and in our city. This amendment does not reject the premise of the original motion, nor does it deny the value of better charging access for all. Residents have routinely raised this with me, and I understand the enthusiasm that people have about better EV charging provision. People get very enthusiastic about their cars, as we saw when today's press presented us with the disgruntled features of Hull Road Lib Dem candidate Andrew Mortimer, who was apoplectic about having to drive to Harrogate. Given my own experiences there, I can sympathise. But I wonder if some of his fellow Lib Dems might extol the environmental and economic benefits of him using a local independent business here in York rather than driving to Harrogate. At first glance, I understand that curbside charging may seem like the right approach on paper. However, on paper, I am a competent driver. And on paper, specifically the paper of Councillor Waters' latest leaflet announcing his defection to Restore, he was once, quote, a normal person. We must be wary of things that only appear to make sense on paper. Now, Councillor Vassy will remember me raising the prospect of cross-pavement charging at Place Scrutiny meeting earlier this year. And he will doubtless remember the officer's reply that without proper planning, installation of chargers on terrace streets would generate significant costs, lead to inequality of access across the city and pose serious safety concerns. And that's without even mentioning the costs and the maintenance costs and the legal liability. This isn't a silver bullet being presented here. So the amendment allows the motion to take a more expansive approach to look at other ways of improving access to charging. It is crucial that we take an evidence-based approach to electric car charging and our wider EV strategy to ensure we lower emissions in the city as well as serving our residents. I appreciate Councillor Vassy's techno-optimism and I really welcome his enthusiasm. But the motion, as unamended, installing the charger is like installing the charger before buying the EV. I still stand by my view that the transition to electric cars from petrol ones is positive, but we need to support this transition as planned, and it needs to tie in with our existing parking policy to make sure that we prioritise residents and ensure that we have the best opportunity for people to get around the city how they need to. Res Park. This amendment provides a dose of reality to Councillor Vassey's admirable optimism.
thank you,
Yes, we must improve our access to EV charging in York, but it can only be done with an emphasis on practicality, fairness and accessibility. I'm pleased to be having this debate and I formally move the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a seconder? Oh, sorry. Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Seconded and reserve the right to speak.
I now invite debate on the amendment. Councillor Colwick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I welcome the contribution of one of our public speakers this evening who recognised just how important this motion is, but also highlighted how the amendment is evasive, unhelpful and obfuscating. Our residents would not thank us for supporting this amendment. The transition to electric vehicles is one of the biggest steps we can take to reduce transport emissions, but if we want people to make that switch, we have to make it practical and affordable. That's exactly what this motion is about. And thousands of York residents live in homes without a driveway, can't simply plug in overnight like someone with off-street parking. Those residents should not be excluded from the benefits of electric vehicles because of where they live. Labour's amendment changes the focus of this motion. Instead of concentrating on how we can help residents charge at home, it turns the debate into a much broader discussion about public charging. That's important. I, along with the Liberal Democrats on this council, fully support it. And York's hyperhubs have shown just what can be achieved, and expanding our on-street charging network must remain an important part of our EV strategy. But that isn't the issue this motion is trying to address. What disappoints me about this amendment is not that it talks about public charging. We all support expanding public charging. The problem is that every time it refers to cross-pavement charging, it immediately follows it with another qualification, another concern, another reason why it might not work. That's the wrong starting point. Our motion simply says investigate it properly, assess the evidence, and then decide. The amendment seems to start from the opposite position, looking for reasons not to proceed before the work has even been done. Nobody is suggesting we compromise on safety or accessibility. Our motion already makes it clear that any technology must be properly assessed for highway safety, accessibility and maintenance before anything is introduced. All we're asking is the council takes a serious look at technologies that are now being used elsewhere, considers the new government funding available, and explores whether this could work in York. If after careful assessment there are places which are not suitable, that's absolutely the right conclusion. But we should make the decision based on evidence, not assumption. This proposal simply asks us to investigate new technology and bring back the facts to scrutiny. If we want more people to move away from petrol and diesel, we have to remove the barriers that stop them doing so. Please reject the amendment, support the original motion.
Councillor Crawshaw.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm just going to pick up on a few things. I was going to save it for the substantive, but I think given that we've just been asked to look at evidence and not assumption, there is an inherent problem within everything that's been said. And I do agree with Councillor Vassey that we cannot go on like this and that we have to cut carbon emissions from transport as a huge priority, and inviting us all to show leadership. But electric vehicles are not the panacea. There is a lot of evidence that says that by the time you take into account the extraction of minerals that you have to do to create the batteries, all of the work that goes into creating those vehicles, that actually they have to be driven for about 50 to 70,000 miles before they are more energy efficient and cleaner than the cleanest petrol and diesel engines. So we are making a huge assumption if we think that electric vehicles is the way to cut carbon emissions and solve the problems of the pollution that we experience in the city. We know that 50% of roadside pollution comes from the exhaust pipe, so the other 50% is still present with electric vehicles. And the problem is those children and young people who came out and called on us all in 2019 to actually stop faffing around and get on with things. And I was there and I was part of it and I supported them, as did many people across the whole chamber in those things. They wanted us to get on with actual real change. And the actual real change that we need to see is to stop people feeling so dependent on their private cars. That is the big change that we have to see. Of course, there are some people who need their cars, of course there are, but there are an awful lot of people who can choose alternative methods. And when you talk about showing leadership, listen to your own leader and deputy leader talking about the car parking charges. Your group's political position is that you want free parking in the city centre so that we can have lots and lots and lots of short vehicle journeys into the city centre. That is catastrophic for what I know you and I both want to see happen. So we need to show political leadership. We need to make the difficult decisions, but we also need to stop obfuscating by pretending that electric vehicle charging is going to be the solution. The solution is sustainable travel. That is the only solution. And anybody who has been outside in the last few weeks cannot think that climate change is something somewhere in the distance. It is here and it is now. My children are terrified, as are all of those young people who are out there, rightly so, because we are all fiddling around the edges while the world burns.
Thank you. I can't see any more hands. So, Councillor Vassy, do you wish to reply?
To the amendment, yes. Thank you, Chair. Hang on.
So, just a minute. Sorry.
Okay.
Councillor Villiers, sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So in 2020, the Lib Dem Green administration approved the EV strategy, which included an annex outlining the challenges around on-street charging. And many of those challenges still remain, particularly around cross-pavement charging. So I'm a bit confused as to why a motion is coming forward. It seems like those challenges were not fully understood. I'm going to outline just some of them now. So York has around 25% of its housing stock is terraced. Around 80% of that 25% of those terraced houses front directly onto a pavement. And the technology will still not allow for cross-pavement charging to go into properties where they front directly onto a pavement. I won't go into the full details, but it's about the angle of the wire going under the pavement. It's simply not possible on ones that front directly onto a pavement. At the same time, a box on the side of the house that then narrows the pavement makes our pavements inaccessible. So there are 80% of York's terraced houses that just simply wouldn't be able to have that cross pavement charging as the technology currently stands. On top of that, when we look at the 20% of terraced houses that we consider might be able to have the cross pavement charging, a good chunk of those can't have it because, for example, they might not have parking outside the front of their house. So you look at a street like Alma Terrace in Fishergate, people can only park on one side of the street and not the other because the street isn't wide enough. So would it be fair that one side of the street gets cross pavement charging and the other side is denied it because they can't park in front of their houses? And then we also want to look at costs. So that's been mentioned a lot tonight. When you start looking at the annual license fee that we would have to charge to maintain and do the checks on the cross pavement charging, and the electrical safety checks and the cost of installing it and so on, it's easily going to outweigh the savings that you make from the cheaper electricity at your home. And that's particularly true for the average driver who nowadays drives around 7,500 miles. So the amount of miles that people are driving is decreasing, which is a good thing. But it means that the gains you make from having the cross pavement charger are just not there. Finally, I wanted to come back to you saying, just go on to why we need to explore the full range of solutions for on street, because we don't want to just look at one solution that only a very small proportion of residents can benefit from. We need to look at all the solutions on street, and that is exactly what we are doing. So in many ways, there was no need for a motion, but I appreciate the debate around it. And of course, we'll get on with getting EV charging for those people who need it.
Thank you. Councillor Smalley.
Sorry, thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a really quick point, just on what Councillor Revilliers has just said. Not all properties in the UK are south, east, or west facing. We have some northern facing properties. That doesn't mean we don't, or the previous governments, including this government, haven't delivered solar grants to properties. There are always properties that are going to be eliminated from some grants on the basis of where they face, whether it's solar or whether they have on-street parking. I don't think that's sort of equivocal or relevant at all.
Councillor Rose.
Just a very quick one, because people like me fact checking stuff in meetings, but that was true in March 2020 when the policy was passed, and you were in that meeting, Darryl, and I note that the public speaker was in charge of housing and neighbourhoods in that meeting, and that Andy was in charge of transport in that meeting, and that Nigel and Andrew Waller and Paula Widdowson and people were there as well. So I just thought that's an interesting point to raise, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Can I just remind councillors to refer to colleagues as councillor, please? I'm not seeing any more hands, but that changed last time.
Move to the vote.
So, Councillor Vassey, do you wish to reply?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. So, the points that have been made, costs will outweigh savings, alleges Councillor Revilliers. That's not what 48 other local authorities are finding. The ones who are actually doing it. Cross-pavement charging isn't feasible because you can't always park outside your own house. It's clear that neither the executive member nor the officers have heard of community charging apps or charger sharing apps that are now rolling out across the country, enabling people on terrace streets to share their charger with other people on the streets so that they can come into their street and just park outside any of the houses that has a charger, charge their car, and it's billed to the person who owns the car. The technology is moving on. We're just being left behind. We know nothing. We don't follow what's going on. We just have excuses. We hear about equity. To be quite honest, George Orwell would think that in terms of doublespeak, this was working overtime here. What is equity when people on Nunmill Street have to pay between 90 and £1.10 per kilowatt hour to charge a car, but I can do it for 7 pence a kilowatt hour? It's disgraceful that we're talking about equity. There's nothing fair about that at all. Councillor Crawshaw talks about the big picture and abandoning cars and the needing to move away from cars. All the contributions from that side of the chamber have seemingly just ignored the fact that the government has recognised that we need to make the change, is offering £500 to help people to make the change, is ignoring the fact that the combined authority with Councillor Douglas and Councillor Kilbane and the Mayor David Scaife have all voted for a strategy specifically calling to roll out cross-pavement charging as part of making the whole thing fairer. The strategy talks about fairness. That's why they've asked for it. That's why Levi have given the funding. That's why OZEV are trying to move us on. Yes, of course, we all want more public transport. Yes, of course, we all want better bus services. I know that. I live in a village where we have 5 buses a day, thank you very much. But the reality is that many people have cars. And if you walk up and down Nunmill Street and Thorpe Street and Russell Street, you'll find plenty of cars there. People are running petrol cars because they can't change. And lecturing them about they should switch to something else won't solve the climate crisis, won't reduce carbon emissions. Leaving it for another 6 months to just think about whether we like this or we like that won't change anything at all. It'll all still be with us in December. I still urge you not to vote for the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Vassie. I will now take a vote on the amendment. If you wish to vote for the amendment, please raise your hand now. All those, sorry, all those wishing to vote against the amendment, please raise your hand now.
19.
Right.
Thank you, members.
Any abstentions? All right, that's 23 in favour of the amendment, 19 against. The amendment is therefore carried. We will now move on to debate on the substantive motion as amended. Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Fenton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Concerns about the feasibility and safety of cross-pavement charging, which have been referred to, are not new. Indeed, the Council's EV strategy approved in 2020 referenced those concerns. That 2020 strategy has now expired, so it seems sensible to me that we take stock, look at what is working well elsewhere, look at the direction of government policy, and reevaluate our approach. That's what the original motion sought to do. I'd like to thank the executive member and officers for coming to engage with Place Scrutiny last November to begin a conversation about the strategy refresh. It was an open and honest discussion, and it benefited from the input of a resident who felt sufficiently strongly about this issue to register to speak. But I did come away with the impression that there remains an in-principle objection to exploring on-street charging options. The 2020 strategy talked about electric vehicles fitting within the Council's wider transport objectives of maximising active travel and minimising private vehicle usage. The draft strategy ideas shared with Scrutiny use somewhat more strident language, referring to not wanting to embed car ownership. The Cross-Party Scrutiny Committee recommended that this wording be reconsidered, and also that the refreshed strategy should focus on ensuring equitable access to EV charging across the city. So, by exploring options to enable residents without a driveway to benefit from EV charging at a similar price to those residents who do have a driveway, are we encouraging private vehicle ownership? Well, it would encourage electric vehicle ownership in preference to petrol or diesel, but by not seriously exploring on-street charging options, we would be locking in disadvantage and potentially a continued dependency on petrol or diesel vehicles for thousands of residents who need a car for work or as a mobility aid. We need to ask ourselves whether that's fair and equitable. We're told that the curbside strategy is being developed as part of the Movement and Place plan, and it'd be really helpful to have early sight of that to help inform discussions about EV charging options. Unfortunately, due to the significant dilution of the original motion's intent, the Lib Dem group has little choice other than to abstain in the vote on the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Excuse me, a bit poorly this week. I wasn't going to speak on this. Actually, on paper, it's one of the most reasonable Lib Dem amendments I've ever seen. The debate tonight has been slightly more heated than how it reads on paper. I think a lot of us are just aggressively agreeing. The reason why I felt like I could back the amendment, as much as I sympathise with a lot of the frustrations from the opposition, is that it doesn't take away what is being asked for, but it does admittedly add a lot more to it. And I think that comes down to how much faith we have in the report that we're going to get to be meaningful. And this comes down to what is, in my opinion, the elephant in the room. Obviously, I won't name names, But the same reasons why the Lib Dem Green strategy on this in 2020 contained lots of reservations about why we shouldn't go down this route are the same reasons why we have reluctance from officers now. And that is that some of those same people were doing this sort of work for the council then as they are now. And that's a problem, because otherwise we're going to be in this rut of never-ending scrutiny sessions and motions saying, we'd like to do this, but now's not the right time, or it's a bit complicated, and we've got to break that rut. I said this at scrutiny, and I'll say it again tonight. I don't buy this fairness argument. I don't think it works. I think it's disingenuous. There's lots of examples of different things that households can use or benefit from, and other households can't due to where they live. Internet, types of bin, how they get their bins collected, how they handle their mail, public transport, and likely so many more examples. But the worst comment I've come across on this matter was at the last scrutiny, where one of our, hard-working, very clever officers doubled down on that. One of the reasons why they're opposed to this is due to the risk of electrocution, which I think took the scrutiny committee by surprise. But there was a recommendation that the executive member would write to the government, who are giving funding for such schemes, to clarify the position on the electrocution point. We're still waiting for an update on that. But ultimately, I just think without real prioritisation that comes from the top, as in us as political representatives, we're not going to get out this rut of scrutiny sessions telling us we can't do things, and motions quite rightly saying we should do these things, when I think most of us all in here are just sick of talking about it. So thank you, Lord Mayor. So let's really hope that this report that's being asked for does deliver something to be optimistic about on this front. And I really wish the Lib Dems would back the amended motion. I get your frustration, but let's have one last little bit of faith. I'm pleading with you personally. Who knows how that's going to go down? But yeah, that's where I'm at. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you all.
Thank you. Councillor Merritt.
Yes, I'd very, strongly want to see this motion carried. I think people have outlined earlier the different nature of different terrace streets, the fact we have an awful lot of direct on-street terraces where this is going to be problematic to deliver the particular solution that the opposition have advocated. This is a much better motion as a result of the amendment, because it recognises we need flexibility in dealing with the different positions in different streets. It needs to be applauded for those changes. But as Callum has touched on, there is an expectation out there in our wards with terrace streets, particularly from the ones that have forecourts, where it is technically possible to actually see this type of solution piloted. So I certainly have an expectation on behalf of the residents in my ward that will now happen in line with the way that we have worded this. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just remind councillors that in the chamber to refer to colleagues by their council name? Thank you. Councillor Ravilius.
Thank you. So I just want to be really clear that we are supportive of on-street charging completely, and that is what needs to come forward in the refreshed EV strategy. But we do need to look at all solutions, and that's because cross pavement will only be applicable for a really small number of properties in York. So if we want to enable the maximum number of people to be able to transition to EV, then we have to focus on a wider basket of solutions for on-street. And that's exactly what we're looking to do in the refreshed EV strategy. And the other point I want to make is, in our city centre areas, in those terraced streets, we all know there's a huge pressure on street space. So the other aspect that's really important is that we start looking at how we enable people to do more car clubs and car shares, and that those can be EV as well. And I think, as Councillor Crawshaw pointed out, it's not about just enabling everybody to transition to an EV. That's not going to solve our problems. We have to look in a rounded way at everything, enabling people to use public transport, enabling people to transition to EV and to share cars and to reduce their carbon emissions from travel. So we've got to look at the whole picture, and the cost aspect of the cross pavement charging is something that the government is looking into at the moment, not just for cross pavement, but for public charge points. They are looking at whether they should be charging as much VAT on the public charging as for the cross pavement. So with luck, that price differential will start to disappear once the government has done that review.
Thank you. Councillor Crawshaw.
Yeah, just very quickly. The Lib Dem policy position is to use financial incentives to encourage more people to drive into the city centre. That is your policy position. You've said it this evening. You now can't bring yourselves to back your own motion on EV strategy. This is climate incoherence. We all know what needs to happen. We are just negotiating with convenience. Get on board.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Nichols has just said to me, what does Ed Miliband think? And it seems we're going to be saved him being Chancellor, which wouldn't have borne thinking about. That might have been something quite radical for this motion. So we're going to, having heard Councillor Taylor's appeal, we're going to vote for the motion as is. We were going to do that anyway. But just the point I'd make is, we're going to vote for it with such a low level of enthusiasm that it's untrue. I will drive back to Copmanthorpe tonight and people will stop me and they will say, we've read the council papers tonight, we saw you were discussing these big issues. Can you tell us how the world has changed to make our lives a better place? And I'll have to tell them, well, it won't in any meaningful way at all, because we had 3 pages of A4 talking about EV in one direction, and then we had 3 pages of slightly different A4 talking about EV in a slightly different way. And I can give them all the buzzwords of scrutiny committee, strategy, review, welcome, look at, but it means next to nothing. So the actual substance of the motion, and where Councillor Vassey's trying to go, I think is eminently sensible. I don't then think it's the worst Labour wrecking amendment of the Labour wrecking amendments, but that is largely damning with faint praise based on a lot of the ones that there have been. But ultimately, when all is said and done, I'd just love to see a motion which said something like, we will increase EV charging points by 25%. That's what we're going to do. We will ensure that nobody is more than X meters away from an EV charging point. But we don't do any of these things. We just write these endless platitudes of virtue signaling about what we'd like to do and noting things and recommending things and being aware of things. And we also make the perfect the enemy of the good. So the point was made about if you can't have both sides of one street done, then you can't have one side. But Councillor Smalley has typically excellently answered that. And it just seems stupid, this way we do things. Can we not just focus on the small changes that we can do to actually make a real difference, rather than these words, which 6 months from now will not mean anything at all, and the world will be no different. Well, I think I'm the last speaker anyway, so I can, but if I'm backing the motion as amended with that level of enthusiasm, I think that probably is summing up the level of the pointlessness of where we are and the points of what's been done and not done and won't be achieved. So thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to suggest, as Councillor Nelson says, that we move to the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Vassey does have the right to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I carry on listening with some degree of sadness to all of this. We hear that because some homes open directly onto the pavement, then those that have forecourts somehow can just be left. It doesn't matter. We'll push that can down the road. There's a lot of sense in what Councillor Stewart's just said. a measure that just said, we'll ensure that 10% of all those homes on terrace streets will have access to this or the opportunity to do it in the next year. That would be at least a step forwards. On the issue that, you know, some houses open directly onto the pavement, therefore it's not possible. There are local authorities up and down the land who are working on delivering the answer to that right now. It's just that we continuously opt out and just ask for more papers, rather than tasking the people we're paying in the team to come up with the solutions, to find out best practice, to deliver what's happening elsewhere. That's what makes me sad. And I agree with what Councillor Taylor said earlier in his comments about his frustration, and Councillor Merritt's frustrations that all those homes with forecourts that could actually be dealt with now are not being dealt with now. That's why the amendment said, that's why the motion said what it said. Let's get on with it. It'll be what it is now. You're going to vote through a process that sees months pass, and we'll see if anything comes of it. But I remind you, it's now 2026. In 2019, we voted to try, with good heart, those who voted to deliver a zero carbon York by 2030. And we're saying it's a good time to have a chat as we head into 2027. I don't think we're bad people, but I think we're all failing here to grasp the seriousness of our circumstances. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vassie. I'll now take a vote on the motion as amended. If you wish to vote for the motion as amended, please raise your hand now.
Yeah, no. Yeah, thank you, members. Sorry.
All those wishing to vote against the motion as amended, please raise your hands now. Any abstentions, please show now.
That's 26 in favour.
That's 20. Thank you very much. That's 26 in favour.
None against.
None against and 16 abstentions.
25.
There's no council vote.
Councillor Rowley is departed, so 25
Oh.
in favour.
Apologies, it was 25 for.
16 abstentions.
16 abstentions. So the motion as amended is carried. I just want to remind members that the guillotine will fall in about 20 minutes. I now invite Councillor Coles to move the second motion in relation to reaffirming York's support for corporate parenting.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm hoping that we can have some straightforward cross-party consensus on this. And in preparation for proposing this motion, I did a bit of light bedtime reading of the Liberal Democrat 2024 manifesto, in which they committed to making care experience a protected characteristic under the Equality Act and strengthening the right of people who have been or are in care. And I'm really proud that we've delivered that here in York. As I know others are, and it's under a Labour-run council via a cross-party corporate parenting board, which we're really proud to champion here in York. But don't worry, Councillor Stewards, if you're still with us. I've also been studying the 2022 Conservative government initiated landmark independent review of children's social care, which recommended the expansion of corporate parenting responsibilities across a wider range of public bodies, something also that City of York Council already champions. It is all very commendable about how we should all be trying to do more, not less, for the children and young people whose care that we as the local authority take parenting responsibility for. The term corporate parenting was introduced in 1998. I realise that some members of the council were probably not born at that point, but actually some members of council will have received the letter that was sent by the former Health Secretary, Frank Dobson, in a landmark letter that was sent to all councillors at that time, and which said that for children who are looked after, your council has a legal and moral duty to try and provide the kind of loyal support that any good parents would give to their children. Elected members have a crucial role. Only you can carry out that role. You can make sure that their interests come first. And it is in the spirit of that letter from September 1998, almost 28 years ago, which I do realise is going to be a lot for the members of council who are under 28, but I am proposing this motion. We heard from the co-chair of the York Corporate Parenting Board, Lauren Thompson, back in November at full council, and we were rightly challenged by her and that Corporate Parenting Board to do more and to do better. And when we met, and I met with the brilliant Speak Up Children and Young People's Advocacy Service, they were just as forthright as Lauren is, and their meeting with the Chief Constable is now in his diary and in mine. The approach that we take here in York is the right thing to do, but it is also an approach that pays dividends, whether that is the outstanding Ofsted inspection report of children's services or decisions nationally to deliver free dentistry to age 25. The point of this motion is that these things don't happen by accident. They are choices. And unfortunately, in some areas of the country, at the moment, different choices are being made. Corporate parenting responsibilities are being diluted, or worse still, the boards that oversee delivery are being abolished altogether. These decisions risk removing all of those 28 years of progress that has been made. This motion will ensure that City of York Council writes to the government to ensure that our corporate parenting responsibilities are made clear and endeavours to ensure that the legacy of the progress that York is making is cemented into the foundations of the city. Unfortunately, under some reform councils, those corporate parenting responsibilities are being diluted and those boards are being abolished altogether. We won't get it all right in York because parents don't get it all right either. But I do hope that this motion sends a clear message to every looked after child and care leaver in the city that we value their place in our city. Our dedication is to providing them with the best possible support that we can, and that we will continue to do that in the years to come, and that the cross-party determination is to keep it that way. I would hope that we will have some cross-party support to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm incredibly pleased to second this motion. This is an issue very close to my heart as someone who's worked professionally with looked after children and wishes to champion their place in this city and their place to have a voice. Being corporate parents isn't just a responsibility, it's an honour for all of us. And as corporate parents, it's our responsibility as a council to champion the children in this city with experience of care and to create spaces for them to be heard. I have to say, it was a real surprise to me to hear how much Councillor Webb has failed as executive member, being that one of my proudest achievements of the Labour Council since taking over the council is turning around our children's services from a requires improvement service that was not good enough for the children of this city to an outstanding Ofsted inspection. And as Councillor Eyre was a councillor in that administration when that requires improvement judgment was passed, I presume he also called his own executive member at the time of failure when that rating happened, in the same way he called all of our executive members failures today for things of a similar ilk. But a key part of the way that this outstanding Ofsted came about was because of the Corporate Parenting Board and the work that's been done on it. Being able to have a looked after child and care experience young people on that board, co-chairing and with a voice on a board like that. I know that some councillors perhaps struggled at the beginning with the concept of that, but I think that we can all see the value that it brings to us as a city, the value it brings to children who we are parents for, having a voice in the services we provide, and the value it brings when we're assessed by external bodies such as Ofsted. The move by Wakefield Reform Council really shocked me. And I think that we all stand in solidarity with anything that we can do as a council to ensure that we make sure that that corporate parenting board exists, that we protect it for the future, regardless of who runs the council, by committing to its existence, and that we call to the government to make that statutory, because what that reform motion has done is show us that councils can choose to be neglectful corporate parents. Now, when parents are neglectful, the government is there to step in and protect those children. And that's what we're asking the government to do for corporate parenting boards, and for the responsibilities that we as councillors take towards to look after children in our city. So I would really thoroughly support everybody here, or hope that everybody here could support this motion, which puts us in York as the council leading the charge to fight for this for our children in the city and in the country. Thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing all the positive discussions of support about what more we can do for the children.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Healy.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Just to correct a slight factual error in Councillor Nelson's last speech. When the Ofsted report did come back to us saying that the service needed improvement, the then relevant cabinet member did take responsibility for that and did resign, was replaced, and then started the journey with the department to the path that we now have of being outstanding. So cabinet members in some parties do take responsibility, and perhaps particularly Councillor Lomas might wish to reflect on that.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
Those comments from Councillor Healy throwing his own members under the bus. Members of the Liberal Democrats, I hope you know that's how your front bench treat you. Corporate parenting in York is absolutely now leading the way in improving the opportunity for young people to have a voice in this city. I'm pleased to announce that just this week, York has been named as one of only 6 local authorities announced as part of the National Children's Improvement Team. I'm also pleased to announce that this week, York has been selected as one of 4 local authorities nationally to become a learning partner with the Department for Education, helping to develop understanding of the new Enduring Relationships programme, which will be implemented in tandem with the Families First agendas, things that this Labour government is doing, trying to recover after decades of waste and ignorance from the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. This is the direct result of the work that we do, fueled by our duty as corporate parents. We are genuinely making a big difference to the young people in this city's lives. And I really do hope that the Liberal Democrats can come with us on this journey. I really hope that they can take a full and active part in the corporate parenting board. It would be fantastic if they did. Finally, this was brought to my attention that there is no statutory duty for a corporate parenting board. And I think this is really disappointing. We in the Labour Party feel that it should be here in York. The Reform UK party, however, they believe that they know better than the people they represent and don't need to hear from them. Probably too busy listening to some super rich lobbyists. Well, together tonight, Council, we can change that. We can nip that in the bud, and we can start a process of moving things forward for all councils across the country. This genuinely could make a big difference to children's lives nationally, and I hope you can all support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just remind members that the guillotine will fall in 10 minutes? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Since I was elected in 2019, one of the most rewarding bodies that I've sat on was the Corporate Parenting Board. At the time, it was felt that it was a little bit top heavy and not representative enough of the young people. And so changes were made to the Corporate Parenting Board, which actually meant under the proportionality rules that the Conservatives lost their place. I absolutely accept that it's the responsibility of all members. And so whilst our group will support this motion, I would urge the executive and the executive member with responsibility for this to look at how we can include all members who want to be involved in this committee. And it might well be that we put politics aside and we actually look at how we can allow access for any members that wish to be part of this body. I would certainly welcome that. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try and vary my comments from the last motion I spoke on, but they're substantively the same point. Councillor Coles, who is a person of good standing, she's a deputy, high standing, whatever. She's a deputy or a police and crime commissioner. You know, with an influence of she is, isn't she?
Lord Mayor.
Or deputy, well, whatever she is. Anyway, but in a position to influence things. Councillor Nelson's clearly spoken passionately about this area, and then at the end of his speech said about now obviously thinking about what more we can do for children. But corporate parenting is a fantastically important area, and what all people in this sphere do, you know, I would look on with respect and say we need to do more of that. But once again, this motion does absolutely nothing. If we look at the 5 points, we're going to commit to maintaining a corporate parenting board, which, I mean, what does that mean? Is it threatened? Is it going to be closed down next week? How long are we how long are we going to commit to keeping it open for? A week, a month, a year? You know, it's just absolutely meaningless. Ask the Place Scrutiny Committee to consider a task and finish group. Well, this isn't the way to do task and finish scrutiny. You've got to complete one of those forms and send it to Councillor Fenton. And then everything else is unfortunately about this national posturing. And I don't understand why it's ruled in order in this motion, because I thought motions had to be about what was relevant to the people of York or what was of interest to the people of York, which is a pretty broad spectrum. But if in York we've got a corporate parenting board, is it directly relevant to York, what other councils are or are not doing? And I just do not believe it is. What this is about, unfortunately, is just Labour putting down a marker as they're running scared from reform and the next local elections. And that's the simple fact, to have that differential in the leaflet when actually this changes the world in not one single way. It changes the lives of children and York is corporate parenting board for in not one single way, writing 2 letters to different organisations, slating one particular council as though we're sort of godfather of looking at how other councils do things, and then this other stuff like committing to maintaining it. It's just ridiculous. We have made no difference whatsoever to one single person with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There are subjects where it's accepted that there will be disagreement on them and they will be the subject of confrontational motions. I didn't really have corporate parenting as one such item. Indeed, in most other councils, it's an area where there is considerable agreement between all parties in order to achieve the best outcome for the young people in the care of that council. The way that this motion is worded, it does suggest that the ruling group regards it as a monopoly, in which case only 24 councillors would be corporate parents, whilst surely the aim is for all 47 councillors. There were reforms in process from 2022, locally with the operation of the meetings of the Corporate Parenting Board, which were indeed being changed in order to modernise it and to emphasise the voice of the child. Indeed, the only reversal of those changes has been to remove the Part A and Part B of the meeting, which had been brought in to give a pause where the young people could leave if they regarded that the items were more bureaucratic. But this has not been exercised as the agendas have been of interest and relevance such that they've wanted to stay throughout, and that's good. Therefore, the Liberal Democrat group has looked at this motion with a concept valuing the need for cross-party working on good corporate parenting. We've overlooked the rather regrettable attempts to take this subject of all areas for political advantage and rationalised that there is more in common than perhaps the mover of this motion has recognised in the wording. It should not be a short-term commitment, and the engagement with young people for support for the time that they are in our care and support for when they become independent young people afterwards. So despite some of the wording, we will be supporting this motion.
Councillor Coles, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just very briefly, thank you to councillors for the comments that have been made. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of them. Absolutely, this is not about a short-term commitment. This motion is actually about trying to cement the progress that has been made through the Corporate Parenting Board and the work that the council and council staff and officers have achieved is trying to cement that right across the council for the long term. Is absolutely not a short term commitment. I was struggling to work out whether Councillor Waller was going to agree or disagree with me for the vast majority of his remarks, but I'm very, very pleased to hear that the Liberal Democrat group will be supporting the motion. I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Steward's point that actually when people are getting rid of their corporate parenting boards in other areas of the country, there is a reason to pass this motion and to show our commitment to these children and young people in the city. And actually, I think there are young people from other areas of the country who get placed in York, and equally there are York young people who get placed in other areas of the country. The reason it is important to try and embed the statutory responsibility to have one of these boards and to embed these standards and expectations is because all of those young people deserve the very best of what we're trying to offer through that corporate parenting commitment that the council makes. Just on Councillor Rowley's point, in terms of whether or not there could be better cross-party representation on the corporate parenting board, I think it's probably one for the corporate parenting board itself to discuss. And actually, I think the views of children and young people are probably quite important. And I think it would be helpful if we can make that additional separate recommendation to the corporate parenting board, that is something that the Conservative group have particularly requested. But I just wanted to end just on the spirit of the motion that I started with when I made my opening proposal, which was that this should be a cross-party agreement, that this is a way for all of us to embed our statutory duty to do the very best for some of the most vulnerable children and young people who live in our city or that we have responsibility for. So thank you for the debate, and I hope we can move to the vote.
Members' apologies, a special apology to Councillor Perrott. I didn't see your hand, but I understand it was up, and so if you would like to speak, you can do, but the guillotine is falling in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Coles made one of the points I wanted to, so thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the vote. All those wishing to vote for the motion, please raise your hand.
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
That's unanimous, so the motion's carried. We have a minute and a half before the guillotine falls. I'd like to invite Councillor Baxter to move the third motion in relation to enhancing services for young people in York.
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
May I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Does anybody wish to speak briefly? Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just very, very this motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor. This motion really does give us an opportunity to champion young people's mental health. It really does give us an opportunity to look at those young people not in education, employment or training, and do what we can to support them, and importantly, draw that funding towards York. It's a fantastic thing. Let's do it.
Councillor Lomas. We've got 45 seconds. Councillor Baxter, do you wish to reply?
Please support it.
I will now take a vote on the motion. If you wish to vote for the motion, please raise your hand now.
Thank you, members.
That's unanimous.
Okay.
The motion is therefore carried. The guillotine has now fallen. And there's nothing left with urgent business or anything to consider. So that concludes the business for this evening's council meeting. Everybody have a safe journey home. Thank you.